Hey, my friend, welcome back. Today, I want to do a garden review video, and I love to sit outside in the space, even though it's a little colder, to just look at it and think about what went well, didn't go so well, what I want to improve next year, or what I want to change up next year. And I always take that time at the end of the garden season to really, yeah, reflect on what I want to change for next year. How I typically do this reflection is I have in my garden journal like a review section where I just note down my thoughts because we all think we'll remember it. But yeah, after just a little bit of time, I typically don't remember anything at all, or just the highlights or the lowlights again, but not the notions in between. So for me, it's always important to keep just track of my garden year to be able to go back when I plan out the next upcoming year. So you're such a good girl. You're such a good girl. I know it's windy and you hate wind. I know. Come, sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Good girl. So let's talk a little bit on how I love to do my review. I have here in my garden journal a little metrics, which just helps me to organize my thoughts. And you guys know I love to be organized. So I have here a category for I love it, I like it, I dislike it, and I hate it. And this is just how I go through the section. So, for example, what did I love? Definitely my dahlia setup. They are just my, yeah, most precious flowers, which I love so much and where I spend so much time with. What I really, really enjoyed as well is all my filler plants. So the year before, when was it? 2 years ago, I had all the dahlias, but nothing else to stick into the bouquets, which was still beautiful, but also kind of a little boring. So I added over the last couple of years more and more fillers and more variety of fillers, some spiky, some disc ones, and really enjoyed what I have, what I had this year. So some sort of a variation of that I will definitely um, repeat. What I also liked was how well everything worked out, how I planted it. Staking was better than last year, but still, there's always room for improvement when I'm staking, except for the spring section, which completely got neglected. This is one what I really, really disliked this year. So the spring vegetables, which I had as a setup for spring. And then what I really didn't like at all was my spring blooms, actually. So my ranunculus and my anemones, monks, those took just so much work to get started, get in the bed. I had the cover on, cover off situation for a while, and it was just too much work. And what ended up, I did have a good number of blooms and had more blooms than the previous year, so there was definitely an improvement. But all of those blooms were completely ravished by aphids. And yes, aphids are not a big deal. You can wash them off, and they're the first, they're basically the buffet for the beneficial bugs to come into the garden. So it's important for me to have those around and not get rid of them. So I didn't spray anything or so, but I definitely didn't take those blooms inside and had like aphids all around. So I enjoyed them in the garden for how long they lasted, but I didn't do much with them, which for the amount it took me was just too much work. So that's definitely something what I'm going to change next year. What I will also have in mind is to keep my setup a little bit easier because next year I will be traveling as much as I have traveled this year, or maybe even more. So I just want to be cautious and I just want to make sure that whatever I plan, I can sustain on the weekends when I'm home and don't get like in an overwhelmed situation of me not being able to like plant out the seedlings I started inside, or have my partner take care of like a million indoor seedlings while I'm gone under the week, right? Those considerations are at the moment considerations I am taken really, really seriously because I want to make it easy for everybody and enjoyable. One thing which I really enjoyed this year and was very surprised by it was how well everything grew with my neglect. I didn't do much. I typically do a lot more in the garden when I'm here and when I have a chance to go after bugs, fertilize more. But in the end, I think the dahlias got like 2 feet in the entire season. I can remember only 1 feet for the veg. Everything else was just left by itself and did quite well for that. So for that reason, I'm still very, very happy on how everything went. I will make some changes to some vegetable setup. So for example, the cut over from the peas to the cucumbers and squashes was a tad late, I would argue. So that cutover was just not as smooth as I envisioned it, um, which resulted in the winter squash having just not enough time to mature properly. The bunnies were also to blame for that because they ate my squash back twice. So it was a mixture of two things why they didn't mature well together. But that is just something what I'm going to switch up. I probably will just plant half a bed of peas, leave the other half empty so I have that space available when I want to plant out my cucurbits. What I'm also doing differently, again, thinking of low maintenance crops for spring, I'm not growing any brassicas this spring. I never had really, really much success with it so far. And again, I'm going the easy route. So I will plant one full bed of onions and garlic. We eat both a lot. So even though it's not the most sexy veg to grow, but it's very, very practical because we do eat a lot of onions, like I would say, like one a day or one every 2 days or so. When you multiply that by a year, it's a lot of onions. So that's like one crop which also stores well and doesn't need much else to do. So I will do that. And then once the onion and the garlic bed is done, I'll probably flip that completely over to edamame because we just love edamame and there is never enough of it. So we'll do that for one bed. And the tomatoes and the peppers went great. I will grow a little bit less hot peppers because we're just not eating that many hot peppers. I do enjoy the jalapenos though, and the cowboy candy I made out of it. So that will be a repeat. Otherwise, I also grew some dwarf tomatoes. Those were really nice, really delicious. In comparison to my heirloom tomatoes, they were okay. They were not stellar. So I'm honestly not sure if I'm growing those ones again or if I just try out a couple other varieties. But compared to like a Cherokee Purple or a Black Krim, which are my top varieties, or like a Midnight Roma in terms of taste, they were like a solid 5 out of 10 in terms of taste compared to the other ones. So I don't have the space to keep fives around in my garden. So I aim for an 8 to 10 in terms of taste and performance to have them grow again. And there are still so many tomato varieties in the world which I want to try. So I'll most likely drop them. The other thing I would say as well, they had an interesting plant habit. So they didn't grow as far as or as tall as my other ones, which is intended because those for that reason they are dwarf varieties. But with that compact plant habit or growth habit, they were very, very hard to stake or hard to grow up my lower and lean trellis system, so up the string, because they had just so many like very, very heavy branches. In one of our windstorms in the summer, I had a couple branches break off because of the weight of the fruit on it. So that was a bummer. But again, I wasn't here to do anything about it, so fretting over it is just not worth the energy. But those are things which I'm going to consider. What I'm also going to consider is how much space I want to keep in my garden for the seeds. Florette is finally releasing her own zinnia seeds, where I'm like waiting for years now to get my hands on it. I can't wait. And I really hope that I will be successful to scoring some in the seed sale, which is supposed to come in January, if I remember that correctly. But I will definitely keep a section available in my garden plan for next year to accommodate those. And one really exciting thing where I'm super excited about it, I saved some tubers of my first seedling, which I love it so much. Can put a picture over here. It's yeah, it has such good properties. It was also a really, really nice tuber producers. I got the seeds Cozy Town, um, from Cozy Town Flowers before, and it's just, yeah, it was so beautiful. It aged so nicely. And yeah, I really hope, I think I saved like around 12 tubers of that. So I want to grow those ones out and see if it comes back true to what I've seen this year. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, and then I'll just take those ideas and feedback and things I want to change into consideration for the space I have and the time I have available, and slowly but surely start planning. So yeah, follow me along. I will definitely take you along for our planning process here to get the next garden started, on how I also use my garden journal to plan out the space and really make sure that I have the right amount of plants for my space available. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions regarding your garden review or garden planning, and what I should cover in my next videos regarding garden plants. I'm always looking for suggestions from you so that my videos are relevant. But otherwise, I would love for you to like my video. This helps me with the YouTube algorithm. And then otherwise, subscribe and watch another video. Thank you.